So, welcome those that are online, and welcome those that are here in person. We are doing kind of talking about mostly marathon racing wax. We've got our first, I guess the first big marathon was that last weekend or the weekend before. There's what was the one I waxed for something the other day, so I don't remember what it was. Yes, Isu. Yeah, that was last weekend or the weekend before, wasn't it? Yeah. So that was the first big marathon. Yeah. Cold?
Temperature was good, but the wind was howling.
Okay. Yeah.
And I missed my grip, and I missed the grip wax on that one too.
That makes it. Yep. So getting that binder down, that's honestly like the number one most important piece is getting a binder down and the correct one. I mean, just an example of this is last year at the Berkey in the Classic on Sunday. I don't know who was there. Did anybody do that Classic race on Sunday last year? No, but people have heard about it. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, not snowing. You go out there, you look at the tracks. There's ice in the tracks. It's icy. Thinking clister, very, very thick binder, but there's snow in the forecast. That said, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches of snow. But Matt's dad, the forecaster, said, yeah, you guys are going to get a lot of snow in 3 hours. So I think 7 inches of snow fell over the course of that race, and those that went with any binder that had any clister in it whatsoever iced up, and they had a very, very rough time. Those that went with a binder that didn't have clister, Matt was one of them, didn't ice up, but he still had a rough time. So when you get 7 inches of snow in a short period of time like that, it's never fun. And Matt will be the first one to tell you that was probably one of the hardest races he's ever done. Finished 6th, but yeah, in his younger days he might have been a little bit more competitive at the back end of that.
I watched that race 3 times on YouTube.
Oh, it's an intense. So yeah, I was busy trying to pack up and get out of there to get home because I was afraid of getting stuck. So I was watching the race from my place I was staying at in Cable, packing up, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look like fun. So awesome. Well, let's get started here. As we go through this, if you guys have any questions here, just let me know. And if people in the chat also have questions, Jim is paying attention to the chat. He'll be your guy that's gonna kind of go over those questions with me. So pretty much what I'm going to do here is kind of go through the process of waxing a set of skis for marathon racing, and then kind of specifically thinking more about marathon racing for this weekend with a no-heat coming up and colder conditions. So I got a pair of skis that I'm waxing. It's not for the marathon, but it's for one of the J&Qs up in Itasca. We're using very, very similar things, and Itasca is what I'm recommending in up there in Michigan. So I'm kind of doing two birds with one stone here. So getting some of my things done. So before we start, I always like to turn my iron on so that gets us up and running. So no downtime. Anytime I have my iron running, I just keep it at 140, and then I can adjust from there depending on what wax I use. So at 140, I can easily adjust up or down as needed. But if I have it at 160, it takes a long time to cool off, or if I have it at 120, it might take some time to warm back up again. But 140 is just kind of a safe in the middle type thing. So I got some refreshment there. So starting off, I usually like to do a glide cleaner. So glide cleaner that I really like, and as people know, I'm Rex guy as well, so I do promote a lot of Rex, but there are a lot of fantastic other wax companies and waxes out there, and I'll be showing some of those tonight. But Rex glide cleaner here. Thing I like about this glide cleaner is it has a very high paraffin content. So at the same time that you are cleaning your skis, you're getting rid of dirt, debris out of the structure, you're adding a paraffin back in there. And so this wax specifically is actually very similar to G41. So those that know the Rex line at all, G41 is that the very hard liquid paraffin, good for man-made snow and good for cold snow. So this is pretty much the same thing, just with a higher content of solvent. versus paraffin. So the actual raw material in it is going to be very similar to that G41. So with that, I just take my toilet paper, fiber cloth, and just apply it to the ski. And if I'm doing a really good job of trying to get these skis cleaned, I'll do it in 2 steps. So if you look at the instructions here on the back of the can, it says just wipe it on, let it dry for 3 to 5 minutes, and then brush it out. What I like to do is actually 2 steps where I wipe it on before it dries out. I'm going to do 1 brush of it. This helps to pick up, I find, just a little bit more dirt and gunk out of the ski. Then I take a fresh cloth, wipe that off, and you'll see here, I mean, this is just one ski from, I don't know when the last time this athlete waxed their ski, but I mean, that's pretty dirty, and I'll just show people here. And that's just one wipe of cleaning this off, and that's a lot of gunk that came out of the ski. And if I didn't do this step, and I went straight to ironing in a wax, this is getting ironed in there as well. So that's why this is probably one of the most important steps in waxing your skis, is getting them clean first. So when I'm cleaning, I will do that step first, and then I'll do the wipe it on again. But when I'm brushing it out, I like to brush out with a metal brush of some sort. So whether it be brass or steel, copper, really anything works. The steel is generally a little bit better. It's also a little bit more expensive. But steel, the bristles are a lot finer. And with those finer bristles, you're able to dig into that structure a little bit more, and it'll help clean out the ski just a little bit more, or a little bit better than a brass brush or a copper brush. So for me, I rarely, if ever, use a copper or a brass brush. I pretty much usually only use steel brushes. I do have the luxury of working at a ski shop and having access to any brush I want and getting them at a very, very inexpensive price. So again, just wiping it on the ski, brushing it out once, taking it, 1 swipe. Again, just as much dirt came out of that second ski as the first ski. So better. So it's for cleaning, it's for brushing out paraffin, it's basically for cleaning out structure. Generally, it's best to have a cleaning brush and a brush you use for waxing. The one I have here is just my cleaning brush. I'm going to use it for the other purpose as well, but I do have another one that's just being used over at our wax bench. So, but yeah, generally I'll have a cleaning specific brush. That's kind of your crappy brush. It's the brush you're going to replace, and then you'll have your nicer paraffin brush, because I got dirt in this, I got gunk in this. I don't want to put this on the ski directly after I just got done cleaning dirt out. So there's dirt in here. So less dirt in there than there is in here, obviously, but enough that you still want to try to use a different brush if you have it. So, but yeah, that metal brush, basically any metal brush, the idea of that brush is to take stuff out of the structure, whether that's dirt, debris, like we are when you're cleaning, or if you have a paraffin on there, you're trying to get out that paraffin out of the structure. Nylon brushes or horsehair brushes. Horsehair kind of does a little bit of both. It can clean out the ski a little bit, but not as good as what a steel brush does. And it will polish the ski a little bit, but not as good as what a nylon does. So if you were to have 2 brushes, it'd be steel and nylon, and that's pretty much what I use for hand brushes. I just use a steel and a nylon. I do use a lot of roto tools, or roto brushes. So I'll have these out tonight, and I'll show you kind of when and how I use them. But I got a few different ones of those that we'll be using. So ski is now dry. So I'm going to put on our paraffin after I brush this out one more time. Now I brush it out one more time. Again, I'll get a clean spot on this rag. Take that off. And quite a bit cleaner here, that second go through. I would guess if I were to do another cleaning and that wet brush, I'd probably still bring out more dirt. And that's why I like to do that wet brush first, is because it's going to take out a lot more of that dirt, debris, gunk than if you just let it dry and then brush it out. So that's why I kind of do that two-step thing where I do a wet brush and then also a dry brush. So we have that. I will be showing, kind of demonstrating 2 different paraffins tonight that we're going to be working with. Rex Blue, just standard paraffin, kind of go-to wax for any Midwest person. Everybody knows about Rex Blue. And then I'll show a second one here that for marathon racing has really been good, but also in shorter distance racing has been a fantastic wax. It's this Swix Marathon powder. It's been a really, really nice wax, but I know powders is a kind of a touchy subject for some people. Thinking back to the fluoro days and fluoro powders, it's not a fluoro powder, it's a paraffin powder, which is going to be different and it goes on differently than a fluoro powder would. So a little bit easier. So with the Rex, I like to have that iron temperature right at 140. So I had it the right temperature to begin with, but I generally do the crayon method. So crayoning it onto the ski. So I'll tap it to the iron, tap it to the ski. And when I'm doing this, I try to keep the edge of the iron over the ski and not over here, over the wax bench, because there will be some drips, and if I'm dripping, I may as well get it to drip onto the ski and still use that wax. Kind of just going over and making sure that a full coverage of that ski there. And then with this, when I'm ironing, I go tip to tail. I generally try to do it in one pass, not putting a ton of pressure on the ski. And re-crayon in the wax again. I'll just re-demonstrate that without brushing this out. So, the side note, when you are putting in a second layer of melt-on wax onto a ski, you want to make sure that ski is completely cool. So when you're wearing gloves like this, it's very difficult to see if it's cool or not. So what I did, take the skin of my hair, just making sure that there's no heat at all. So if you look at a ski, and so I did that one pass of the iron, you'll notice there's a couple spots here that I missed. So there's there, and maybe that, and then like right down there at the tip. So those are spots that I want to redo, go over again, but I wouldn't want to do it instantly. So sounds like we're better. So I wouldn't want to do it instantly. I would set that ski off to the side, and I would go back to the second ski, work on that one, and then come back to this one for that second pass to make sure I hit the spots that I missed. So I'll go back to that crayoning method again. So I'll put another coat of wax on here, just pretend it's a fresh base. I'll just put more wax on. Doesn't really make a big difference there. But crayon it onto the ski, and the big important pieces are that you get full coverage of the ski with the wax you're crayoning on, but also that you're holding the iron over the ski, so that way any wax that drips off of the iron is landing on the ski. So one of the important pieces there. And then generally I just drag off a little bit of that last drip on the tip of the ski, but putting most of the pressure on, not a lot of pressure, but more pressure on the back of the iron versus the front. It's going to allow the wax to melt just a little bit better, at least from my experience it does. And then taking about 8 to 10 seconds to get to the end of that ski. Anything slower, you're going to risk burning your ski, and I mean I can go really fast, but that did nothing. So, so 8 to 10 seconds is generally what I recommend there. And again, if you miss a spot, don't worry about going over it again. Right now, you can go over it again when you get that next wax in, or the next layer. So, a lot of times you can scrape out the groove right away, especially on like colder waxes. You scrape out the wax right away, it's just less chippy. You don't get as much stuff anywhere in the groove. So, just doing that right now. So, again, before I do anything to the ski, I'm going to set it off the side and begin working with that second ski. So, second ski, I put put on. This one's going to have that glide cleaner that's fully dried out. And this one, you'll notice that the glide cleaner is kind of a white surface there. That's the paraffin that's in that wax. That's kind of drying out on that ski. So if you're using a liquid wax of any type, a lot of times you will see that paraffin on there. So that's what's needing to get brushed out.
Okay, basic question. Paraffin is a wax ingredient?
Yes, paraffin is a hydrocarbon. So think of, this is wax. So candle wax is a paraffin. So there are other waxes, kind of like this N-kinetic coal. This is not paraffin based. There's no paraffin in here. It's a different raw material. Back in the old days, fluorocarbons. Pure fluoros are not paraffins. They are just something else.
Got it.
So, yeah. So taking that brush, just do a couple light passes, and then brush it out. And again, a little bit of dirt, but again, not as much as that first go around. So, I'll demonstrate on this one the powder paraffin from Swix. So Swix Marathon Pure. There's actually 2 different versions of this. Well, technically there's 4 different versions. There's a powder paraffin, and then there's a regular block paraffin. They are the exact same wax, just in a different form. Then there's 2 different types of that. There's white and then there's black. So the black is there for more dirty, transformed snow. The white is going to be for cleaner, more natural snow. Generally, from my experience, I haven't worked a lot with the Pro Marathon, so that's the non-fluorinated version. I worked a lot more with the fluorinated version. They had a fluorinated marathon. The white is generally tested better or consistently better than the black. There are conditions where, yes, the black is definitely better than the white, but the white is a safer option. So I generally, without testing, will go towards that the pure marathon, the clean one, the white, versus going to the black one. And that's not just with Swix, that's kind of across all companies. I don't like to additives in a wax if I haven't tested, or if I don't have like specific experience with that snow type or that place. So adding in a graphite additive or a molybdenum additive into wax, it can definitely help out in the right conditions, but there's also some liability in there. If you miss it, it's going to significantly decrease your performance, your speed on your skis if you miss it. Whereas a clean wax generally is a pretty safe wax. This weekend up in Marquette, for example, they just got a bunch of snow, 2 feet of snow, something in the last few days, and it's cold again. That new snow, higher humidity, or it might be higher humidity, but colder temperatures, it's probably a safe bet that a graphite is going to help out with there. So that'd be a case where, yes, even though I didn't test, putting a graphite somewhere on that ski is probably going to help out. Versus even at Sealy, if you were to have a race in Hayward, I don't know if they got nearly as much snow. I know it's going to be cold. It might help, but at the same time it might hurt. So it's probably safer just not to put it on for that. But up in Marquette, you're probably safe to put it on for that race. So, but powder paraffin comes in a nice shaker tube. I generally hold it guiding with my fingers here. That's guiding along the ski base, and I'm tapping the back of the wax and trying to get most of it onto the ski. Now I will carefully take the ski off. Before I do that, I will take a groove pencil and just basically try to get as much of that wax out of the groove as possible onto the part of the ski that you're trying to iron in. Careful about this. I'll come over here and show you kind of guys how much wax I have on there. So I'm probably going to put a little bit more on the middle part of this ski here. I have good coverage on the tip and the tail, but in the middle it might just be a little bit close to the edge, or close to the groove. So I'm going to put on a little bit more of this powder paraffin. The reason why I like the powder better than the block paraffin is that it does have a higher melting temperature than than some of the other waxes out there, Rex Blue for example. This should go in at, I usually put it at 150, 155. Swix recommends 160. So when you have those higher temperatures on a block paraffin, it's actually it's more difficult to put on uniformly. The powder paraffin just melts in so much easier. So I can get away with that slightly cooler iron temperature, 155, and still be okay with that. So I'm gonna get better coverage here. Add part of the ski. And this. Change that iron temperature, which I should have done prior to applying that, giving it time to warm up. So probably have 20 or 30 seconds here. Any questions? No?
Generally, you melt your wax with a 5 to 10 seconds, one single pass, you're done.
And yes, and then if I need a second pass, I'll go back to it 5 minutes later, once it's cool. So anything longer than that, you're at risk of burning your base. So these bases on this athlete skis have seen a little bit too high of iron temperatures. So yeah.
Another question, this tube is pretty small. How many skis can you get out of one of those?
This is going to be the same, roughly the same amount of skis as what you get in the block.
Oh, okay.
So this is 40 grams worth of wax. The block is 40 grams as well. So I would say probably 8 to 10 pair. It'd be my guess. I haven't really ever measured it out. But yes, probably 8 to 10 pair. So, all right.
There's another dumb question for you. So what happens if you burn the base? Because I'm sure I do that all the time.
When I brush this ski out, I'm certain I probably will be able to see it. I'll give you an example of what it looks like, and then from there, tell you the reason why. So, but same thing on this. But generally, what I'll do is I'll try to clean off the iron beforehand. I've got Rex Blue on here, but a lot of times I don't know what's on there. So for me, do that. So,
We got a question.
yeah.
What happens if you burn your base? Permanent damage.
So what happens if you burn your base? Depending on how much you burn it, there could be some permanent damage. There are ways to fix it. It does cost some money. You bring your skis here and I'll try to get a stone grind into it and take that base material out and try and get some healthy base material. But depending on how much it gets burned or how deep that is, sometimes it is unfortunately permanent. But we can usually diagnose that pretty easily here, see if it's a deep burn or just a light surface one. So, but again, I'll show the people here what it looks like. It's going to be difficult to see it on camera, I think. But so again, and with these powders, this is where I generally try to keep the front of the iron up just a little bit. It allows that paraffin to kind of roll underneath the iron. You get a nice uniform melt. And you'll notice there are a few spots here where I pulled the iron up a little bit too much. There's like a spot there and back here. That's basically that powder just never got melted in. So I will want to have to do a second pass on this. I'm not going to do it right away because this ski's warm right now. So I want to let it cool down, get back to room temperature before I get to that next one.
Show the audience online.
So a couple spots here that I missed. I should go over again, but I'm going to wait some time. Thank you. Going back to original ski with Rex Blue. If there was any spot that I missed, this would be the time where I would go over it again. Did a pretty good job of getting most of it there. I'm going to move this off to the side before I scrape and brush. So I've already scraped out the groove. I generally will try to do it one more time just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I always like to scrape out the groove before doing anything else, any other steps. The reason is if I accidentally get out of the groove and go across the ski base, I'm going across wax rather than ski base. So it's less likely to put a scratch in the ski by doing that. Here, cap off my glide cleaner. We're doing that right away. scraper, scrape the edges of the ski. And then nice sharp scraper. I did grab a new scraper for this, so it's pretty easy to scrape out this wax. Generally, I'm trying to get as much wax out as I can with the scraper before I move on to the brush. And so I'll show you the two different ways that I brush. I'll do this ski with the old-fashioned way. So steel brush, I'm going to clean it a little bit here. Trying to get off more of that gunk that was on it from before. But steel brush, I'm going to brush a little bit more aggressively than I did when I was cleaning. So a few more passes. And what I'm looking for is, I can see a little bit of paraffin still in the ski, and I'm brushing over that until I see that paraffin base can just all disappear.
Jeremy, there is a question. What signs indicate burn spots on the ski base?
I'll get to that right shortly. So generally I'll do that steel brush, and then I'll go to a nylon brush, and once I'm done with my paraffin coats, if I'm going back to another melt on paraffin, I'm going to let that sit without polishing. Basically, I just opened up the structure. It's ready to accept more wax. By polishing, you might be closing a little bit. I don't know if that's really the case, but it puts a good shine on it. So, nylon brush, scrubbing back and forth. Put a bit of pressure on there. With a nylon brush, there's no way that you can possibly overbrush with a hand nylon brush. So with this ski, I'm going to grab another toilet paper.
What's the stiffness reading of those brushes?
So this is a stiffer nylon brush. So I generally like more stiffer nylon brushes. Soft ones just kind of seem to muddle things up a little bit. They don't polish nearly as well. For some liquids it works, but with paraffins I definitely just like the regular brushes. So I'll just pass this ski around. But what people will notice, especially up in the tip here, there is going to be a shinier spot in the middle of the ski, and then towards the edges is going to be some shadowing. That's a sign that there's some burned bases in there, especially after you know that you did a good job of brushing. So sometimes you see that, it could just be some wax left in the ski. But if you know that you got a good job of brushing and you still see some of the shadowings or two different colored base materials, that's a sign that there's some base damage there from burning. So I'll pass the ski around. You can notice that again, there's going to be another spot kind of in the back here, and then definitely on the back part of the ski. Generally the tips and the tails are the most susceptible parts to burning. That's the thinnest part of the ski. The heat has nowhere to go. In the middle of the ski here, there is places for that heat to go. It kind of gets dispersed into the base material. That being said, there's also in bindings, there's screws here, 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 and there. A lot of times when I see burn marks, I'll see a burn mark here, 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 and there. So it corresponds with those screws. Those are heat sinks. They just want to soak up heat. So that's another spot. That's generally, if I see burn marks in this part of the ski, it's really bad on the tips and the tails. So I'll pass the ski around. You guys can take a look at it.
Just kind of a random question. How often do you sharpen the scraper?
Oh, I do it every day here, or I just go buy a new one. But it's very frequently, especially when I'm working with harder waxes, like blues and harder. I will, yes. Sharp scrapers are nice. Dull scrapers suck. You're just giving more work to yourself by not using a sharp scraper. So, going back to this ski here, I do want to get a little bit more wax in this ski. So it'd be difficult to see here, but this is on the powder paraffin. I don't know if you can see it on the camera here. I can barely see it right now. But basically there's very little wax in this part of the ski. It all got dragged up to here and here. So I want to put a little bit more wax in this part of the ski here. So this is where that powder paraffin, you guys will notice, there's basically no wax right here. It all just got dragged up to this part of the ski. So I just want to get a little bit more wax. I'm going to put a little bit more on, iron that back in. It's like there's nothing here. It's all there. So that happens. So I'm just going to put a little bit more of that paraffin on.
I'm not sure.
Add this in. So just on the parts of the ski that I noticed that need a little bit more wax. Yeah. Going over that, getting a nice even melt. And so these spots still there, but they're now melted in underneath, so it looks a little bit better. So, but again, I need the ski to kind of cool down a little bit. Oh, any questions with the melt-on paraffins? I mean, this stuff goes for any company, any wax. When you get to more difficult ones to work with, so something like Start Green, just again, if you miss a spot on the ski, if it didn't melt in correctly, let the ski cool down, do another pass. It doesn't hurt to take a few more seconds.
So don't brush it up at all between or do anything.
No.
And
no.
you don't care if there's a metal brush as your last brush before, after your wax, you just metal brush it.
Yep, metal brush. Metal brush is the last brush until you get to like the finish with the paraffin, and then you use a nylon brush to polish it off. So.
How do you sharpen your scraper?
Depends on where I'm at and what I have access to. I like, we have a electric sharpener here. It kind of chews through scrapers very, very quickly, but does a very good job of getting them sharp with little effort. Those Swix sharpeners that you just put 2 fingers on and rub it against, it's like it has a file on it. I don't have it here. I thought I had a file somewhere, but those do a pretty good job of keeping them relatively sharp. You can even do sandpaper if you are able to keep that scraper straight.
Yeah.
Put it on edge at all, you're just going to round out the scraper and make it worse. So trying to avoid that if possible. Yeah, electric sharpeners are nice. Kind of expensive though. So, yeah, so next we'll move on to liquid paraffins. And so in marathon racing, or just waxing in general, there's a lot of liquid paraffins that are getting introduced. So liquid paraffins, example of that, G11 or G21 in different forms from Rex. Swix HS line, would be paraffins. TS is, I don't know if this is necessarily paraffin, I think this is a top coat. But
Question from the online audience. Do you always start with a cold, hard base wax regardless of the race temps?
for marathon racing, I generally would start with a harder base wax. Doesn't necessarily have to be like a super hard wax like a Start Green, but Rex Blue, it's a hard base wax, goes on easily. I mean, putting this on is never going to be a bad thing as your first coat. So, for example, if I were to be race waxing for this weekend and I want to do like a full-on non-fluoro race wax job, probably start off with a Rex Blue. Potentially would put a Start Green. I'd probably decide between Start Green and the Swix Marathon, which one of those two I'd want to apply. I'd probably do the Swix Marathon because it's easier to apply than the Start Green myself. And then from there, picking out your top coat of choice. For this weekend, I would lean probably towards the Inkinetic Cold from Rex. If there's a top coat that works really good in colder conditions, like when it gets down to single digits or even like low teens, this is going to be a fantastic wax. I've actually used this a couple times before in fluoridated conditions or races that you can use fluoros in. I've had this win in very, very cold conditions, but fluoros generally are not good.
Does that have graphite in it at all?
No.
That one?
No, it's just a nano liquid. I don't know what it actually is made out of.
Yeah.
So when you're using stuff like this,
But for really very cold weather.
yeah, cold weather. Single digits is great.
But for cold weather, would you have the blue as the base, or would you have like
I would use this as just kind of an underlayer going,
You would.
but then I would still put on like that Start Green or the Swix Marathon over the blue. So I'm just putting this on just to get some wax into the ski, because a lot of people just don't wax their skis in between races. They're dry. It's just going to get something in there. So generally just starting out with the Rex Blue or what is it, PS6 from Swix. Start blue, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Just a blue of any type. Except for Toco, you want Toco red. Toco blue is kind of a hard wax. So just something that melts in, easy-ish to melt in, but not being like a red, where it's like a super soft wax. So putting in a soft wax is gonna do negative things to your durability on a ski. It's soften up the ski base. It means wax can come out a little bit easier, especially in colder, more abrasive conditions we can get. So yeah. Anyways, moving on to liquid paraffins. So I'm going to just show Rex G series. There's two different G series here. Well, two different application methods of the exact same wax. So there's daughter bottles and then there's spray bottles. I'll just show both of them really quickly here. Pretty easy, but generally just shake up the bottle. And then with the daughter bottle, you need to, especially the first time, you need to get the wax flowing into that sponge. So it takes just a little bit of time to do that. But once it gets going, basically just rubbing it on the ski, trying to get the entire ski, one side of that base wet, or one side of the groove wet, and then getting the other side of the groove wet. So pretty easy to use. The nice thing is that for those of you that are waxing at home that don't have a wax bench, that can't do any of this iron stuff, this is really simple to do at home by putting it here and just, I can wax this right in my kitchen. No, maybe not the kitchen, but garage, basement.
So Jeremy, just this is a technical question on waxing. Do you ever use horsehair brushes on the colder wax between steel and nylon brushes?
If you don't have a good scraper, then that's a good way to get more of that wax out. So I'll show that on when I get to the other one there. So that's really the only time I use horsehair is if I just have a crappy scraper. It can just help to speed up that process of brushing. So did half the ski there. Then I got the spray bottle. So again, shaking it up. With this, I like to have natural cork candy. But basically what I'll do is I'll just spray a dab on it, and I'll just spread that little dot out. Just keep it going down the ski base until I get that full coverage. And so this is going to be a little bit more cost-effective way of doing it versus just like that, where I'm probably wasting a little bit of product. So, yeah, so way to do that there. But I guess I got an interesting story, funny story. What time is it? 6:50. So when a couple of years ago I was waxing with my brother at World Cup Biathlon Finals, IBU Cup in Norway. And we were basically done waxing for the day. We were waxing for Rex Ski Wax. So basically just testing out Rex products, telling teams which product was the best. At the end of the day, we needed to get our skis zeroed out with all the same wax, so we can test out the next day on fresh skis that are all have the same starting point. We had 8 pair of skate skis that we just wanted to get out of there, so we took 8 pair of skate skis, lined them up like that, 8 pairs across, basically as close together as possible. We took a can of HF21 and just stood and just sprayed it, and emptied out a can, $100 whatever wax, and we just walked out. Not the most cost-effective way to wax a pair of skis, but it got the job done quickly. So, yeah. So again, going back to, this is the Marathon. Very similar way of getting wax off with the Marathon versus that Rex Blue is scraping and brushing. So getting out through. I'm already done with my iron. I'm just going to plug it in. There.
Can you use the liquid wax as your base coat?
You can. You definitely can. For marathon racing, you definitely can do it, but if you only use liquids, generally your base will dry up over time. So getting a melt-on wax in there occasionally does help. But that being said, if you don't have access to melt-on waxes or anything like that, this is still gonna be better than nothing. So, putting this stuff away, just moving things out. So, got most of the wax off. Now I'm gonna be moving over to roto tools. So when I'm working over there in the shop, I wax a lot of skis every day. I don't really use these very often. Using my roto tools, it gets the job done a little bit quicker. So this is a horsehair and steel brush combo. So generally what I'll do with this is I will use the horsehair first, actually, and that's going to get out a lot more of the wax. Then I'll use the steel to clean out the structure. So with that horsehair, I'll just basically do one pass forward, one pass back, steel. One pass forward, one pass back. And then I'll generally go back to that horsehair, because the horsehair, at the same time of taking out wax, is going to give it a little bit of a polish. So basically I'm taking out wax out of the structure, and then I'm going to try to polish it just a little bit with that horsehair. So, just like that.
So for anyone who hasn't done that before, how much pressure are you putting on?
I'm putting on very little pressure. I'm not like doing that, but I'm not putting a ton of pressure down on the base.
Got
So, I don't know, a few pounds worth, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to measure pressure sometimes.
Yes.
But basically, it's just like I'm probably no more than what the actual drill itself weighs. So, and with this drill, at least the DeWalt one, I run it at full speed. If you have a wired drill, generally it's a little bit higher RPMs than a wired drill. I probably wouldn't run it at full throttle there. There's a chance that you could burn your bases with the friction created by the actual brushes on a wired drill. But wireless, cordless, yeah, you're gonna have no issues with that. As long as, again, you keep it moving, you don't just sit there and just do that. So, so I'll just show you guys one more time here what it looks like if I'm just doing it the entire thing without pausing in between. It helps to have it locked in place. So that's generally what I do with the drill. And then again, after this, I'll go back to a nylon. Really give it a good shine. So, but again, you're gonna see on this ski, there's still some of those burn marks on here. But yeah. And then with this, I'm probably gonna put on that liquid on this ski as well, because I am race waxing this for a race this weekend. So
That's a Rex Blue Liquid.
yep, this is the blue liquid. Honestly, probably G41 might be the slightly better option for Itasca. It's going to be cold this weekend. I'm not looking forward to it. So. So with this, with these liquid paraffins, a lot of times it is better to let it sit in the base longer. So if this were to be something I wasn't just kind of doing for the clinic here, I try to let this sit at least overnight. The longer it sits in the base, the better it's gonna work. So I probably after the clinic will go back and put something back on there and just let it sit again. But for the sake of the clinic, I'm going to brush this out. So with a liquid paraffin, I generally avoid steel brushes on a liquid paraffin. I'll either use a horsehair or generally just a nylon brush. So I like nylon brushes. I like the Red Creek Blue Nylon brush. It's a nice stiff brush. It works for a lot of different types of waxes. So just brushing So the Rex liquids, I've had better success not working with working them in. So you can work them in different ways, whether it's a roto felt, roto wool, or roto fleece, or roto fluffy. But the Rex liquids generally are best not worked in. They get kind of gummy, and that performance just doesn't really work as well. So, getting that brushed out. A lot of times, we want to go to the next level. I will throw on another brush. Throw on a blue nylon brush. Again, going to do the same thing as that, just better and quicker. Things away from my bench. Just checking to see if they've gotten a stone grind anytime recently. I don't think they have, at least from us. So, base doesn't look very good, very healthy. So, again, as I'm putting in more of these waxes and more of these, those burn marks are going to kind of start to pop out there. So you'll see that, especially up on that tip there, and down at the tail, it looks not great. So,
All the way through the center for.
alright, so with the ski, I'm just going to skip the hand brush there. Alright, so got that brushed out. Take off all the wax particles, wax dust. Now onto the top coat. So from Rex top coat that I've really had a lot of success with testing is the Ankinetic Cold. This wax has been fantastic in any conditions underneath freezing. Even above freezing is still pretty good. The Ankinetic Warm has to be, I mean, if you look at the temperature ranges on here, Ankinetic Cold says -4 to -20 degrees Celsius. Ankinetic Warm, I think, is -4 to +10. I don't know, it's as warm as you want. That's the warmest one. I generally have seen this work better than Ankinetic Warm up to like probably +2 or +3 Celsius. It's not until you get to really warm and wet that the Ankinetic Warm starts to overtake the cold. So this is a much wider temperature range than what's on the bottom.
All right, 2 requests. One, the camera would like to see the burn marks. If you could like be really explicit.
I'll try to see what I can show on the camera. That ski is definitely worse than this ski. So once I get the other one back, I'll try to show it off.
And then the second one is, can you mention again graphite versus non-graphite?
Yes.
For this weekend.
Yeah. So for this weekend specifically, if you're looking up at the Noki, I believe, just a guess, don't blame me if it goes wrong, that graphite additive, at least in the underlayer, I probably wouldn't do it in like the top coat or the finishing layer, is probably going to be beneficial. So graphite additives are good when it's cold and more natural or newer snow, which is what is up there in Michigan right now. But with additives, you are running into that risk versus reward. By adding the additive, there is a chance, there's a liability sometimes where if it isn't the right conditions, it's actually going to slow your skis down. So
they mentioned specifically
G21G, yes.
Yeah, versus G21.
Yeah, so I mean, up there, I believe that G21G would be probably a better option than G21.
Okay.
But I probably would still bury that underneath something. So I might do a G21G and then cover it with a G21 or a G41. So still having it buried underneath something is probably going to be a safer bet than just leaving it out in the open. So
Graphite for base.
yes. Yep. So I'm going to go ski for yes. Questions on it? All right. No idea if it's going to show up in here. I'll try and do some different angles, but yeah. So in the center of the ski, it's a little bit shinier, and then on the edges, it's a little bit more dull. When you see two different tones of the base material, that's when you notice that there could be some burning. Sometimes that just means that there's paraffin or wax left in the base. This is clearly not that. So, all right. So moving on to top coat. So I'm going to apply two different top coats here. From Rex, and Kinetic Cold is applied very similar to the G21 in the daughter bottle. So you want to prime that bottle. And this just kind of line across the entire ski. And now just get the entire ski wet. And so this one specifically, you'll want a longer drying time. So this is something that it doesn't work as well if you just do a really quick dry. And it looks like it does dry pretty quickly. I mean, this is pretty much almost dry here. So you guys can see that, a little bit of that white film on there. But the longer that you let this sit, the better it will work. So letting it sit longer period of time is going to be definitely beneficial.
Like
So-
24 hours, or what's longer?
At least an hour. So like the minimum recommended time for like the G series is like 20 to 30 minutes. I would say the minimum recommended time for Kinetic Cold is an hour. But again, if you can make that last overnight, it's only going to be better. So, letting that dry out. Then going on to the next product. So, another product that I've seen from Swix work really well, the TS line. Specifically the warmer one. So TS7 has been a fantastic wax. I've seen that test really well, a lot of different conditions. And I actually haven't tested it myself, but I've heard that the HS7 is one of the better colder waxes from Swix compared to even like the TS6. So take that with a grain of salt. It's just word of mouth, but yeah, HS7 might be better for cold, TS7 better for warm, compared to the other waxes in that line.
Is that outside of the range? Like a 7 is usually 18?
Yes.
18.
Yeah, so it's colder than that. That's, again, what I've heard. And then the coldest one that works well is HS5, the melt-on paraffin. That's also another very good melt-on paraffin. So, specifically like man-made snow, colder stuff, HS5 has really been a good wax. So, so with the TS line, there's kind of two different recommendations to apply. Well, there's three. There's the one that's on the bottle, which says spray it directly onto the ski. I just actually heard from the Swix rep yesterday that they're now kind of changing the way that they're recommending to apply the TS line of waxes. Two different ways is if you have a natural cork or a felt cork or something like that, spraying the wax onto the cork and then spraying it out on the ski. Basically what it's doing is it's not getting as thick of a layer. They've noticed that if you spray it directly onto the ski, the layer gets a little bit too thick. So you do that, spray it onto the wax, to your cork, and then spray it out on the ski. Or, if you get Fluffy Bunny, if you have a roto wool, this is where you can still apply directly to the ski if you wanted to. So I can just apply directly to the ski. It's a much thicker layer. And then generally I will try to let this dry and then hit you up with this. But I'm just going to do it really quickly. Brushing this over, we'll get a nice layer. Or the other way you can do it, directly spraying your Fluffy Bunny and then again putting it on like this. So with this, I'm basically not putting any pressure on this at all. It's a pretty thick material. I'm just letting that material kind of float on top of the ski and it's basically just using very, very light amount of friction to kind of work it into the base.
Does it matter if the ski is warm when you apply liquid wax, or can the ski be cold outside?
It generally helps if it is kind of closer to room temperature. You can do it when it's cold, but it's just not going to adhere to the base. It's going to take longer to dry. So if you were putting on one of these waxes, the TS line, you're going to have to let it sit in there longer for it to do what it needs to do. If you're on a room temperature ski base, it'll be good. And if you're something worried about like ventilation or anything like that, you can apply it outside, let the aerosols happen outside, then bring the ski back inside, let it dry inside in a warmer place where you're not worried about things getting off into your house. So that is a way to do it. So, but working this in, and again, I would let that sit for a while before I would brush it out. So brushing it out, again, similar roto nylon, hand nylon, just nylon to get a nice polish on. So this ski is now pretty much nearly waxed up except for the finishing touches, which is going to be the nylon brush. The only thing that you want to do, structure. So that's another big aspect to waxing skis, going to be structure. There's tons of different structure tools out there from different companies. One we sell, we've had a lot of success with is Red Creek. So I've got 2 boxes here filled with different tools from Red Creek. So I'll show off a couple of these here. Let me just grab a couple. So the 3 that I like, if I were to create like just a small kit, smaller than what I have here, I've got 10 different tools here. If I were to create just a 3-kit tool, 3-tool kit, I would do these 3 tools here. So first one is going to be coarse, so just a Red Creek coarse. It'll just be a broken linear, so it'll be easier to see like that. Broken linear. This tool here works well for most man-made snow, man-made conditions. So I think early type skiing, early snow skiing at Theodore Worth, Elm Creek, Highland, or if you get like really broken down, aggressive transform snow, so later season, spring season skiing, that's gonna be an awesome tool to use for coarse, aggressive type snow conditions. Any temperature range, higher humidity conditions, you'll want to press a little bit harder, especially on the back half of the ski. I've also seen you be able to use that in 2 different directions, where you go forward, flip it, go back the other direction. It kind of creates a crossing. So it's just another way to add more structure into that with one tool. Then 2 more tools that I like are going to be more for natural conditions. So you got a plus 15, minus 5 degree Christmas tree. So when you put this on the ski, it kind of forms like a Christmas tree. So this is going to be a warmer natural snow tool. And then we have a minus 5, minus 20, just broken linear, similar to the coarse. This is going to be for colder conditions, so something for this weekend. So again, broken linear. And that one's going to be a lot less aggressive. So you kind of notice the differences in aggressiveness in these tools. The warmer it is, the more aggressive that they get. So let me find a super aggressive one. I think I have, So this is going to be a extra coarse. I can show this. This is an extra coarse. I've got 10 tools on here, but this is probably one of the more aggressive ones that Red Creek has. But you'll notice the difference between them is just how much, how sharp those rills are. So that one's probably going to actually like press into the base just a little bit more. And so all of these tools are press tools. So you're not actually cutting the ski base, you're pressing the ski base into that shape, which means that over time, or if you pop the structure correctly, it will come back out and you're not going to ruin your structure. There are other tools out there though that will cut into the ski base, and the only way to get those out is to bring them back into me, and I'll take your money and I'll grind it. So.
Do you always add structure?
Huh?
Do you always add structure?
A lot of times, most times yes. if you have the right tools. So I'm not going to say if you have just 3 tools, I'm not going to say that you should always add structure. You need to have the right tools in order to be able to add structure all the time. So
What is structure?
structure is going to put a different pattern into the bottom of the ski base that is going to affect the way that your ski interacts with the snow. So in higher humidity conditions, what you're trying to do is manage the amount of water that is on that ski base. So when you have the ski base and the snow, and there's a lot of humidity in the snow. Think of having like 2 transparencies with just a little bit of water in there. Put them together, it's just going to be suction. Your skis are just going to suck to the snow. That's kind of what happens there. If you add in the correct structure, it's going to break up that suction and allow your skis to glide. In colder conditions like we have this weekend, you actually want to put a bit of structure in your skis, not to get rid of water because there's not a lot of water in there. You actually want to create a little bit of friction, create a little bit of surface area on that ski to allow the snow to heat up just a little bit and create a layer of water, because that's what you're gliding on even in cold weather, is that you're creating a layer of water molecules on the ski that's going to help you glide across that snow. So by adding that what is this, the -5, -20, you can see how much stuff is going on in there in a very small period, very small space. That's going to allow you to hopefully heat up the snow just a little bit and break up some of that static friction is what we're working on. So it's just trying to beat different types of friction, and that's why, I mean, getting a skis stone ground with a structure versus pressing a structure in is going to be a big difference there. So there's a lot of different grinds that we can get on a ski, whether it's a cold grind, a warm grind, that are going to do different things.
It's kind of a nuanced question. Is there a bottom temperature where the hand structure does not have to be added for a benefit?
It's more dependent on snow type than it is on, so I don't know if they heard the question. So the question was, if there's a bottom temperature to adding structure, and kind of answer is more if it's more along the lines of snow type and humidity than it is for temperature. So generally, newer snow, drier snow, less humidity, and colder, probably less necessary to have structure than it is if it's, I mean, any warm, high temperature humidity. But if you get the colder, older snow, transformed snow, yeah, structure is definitely still going to help. I was talking to my brother who waxes for the US ski team. He says that probably 99% of all races that they do, they're adding structure into skis. Doesn't matter the condition, really. There's always something in there. Ways that you can get around. So for this weekend, if it's cold, new snow, dry, you're at a -5, -20, I would not do a full ski length. What I would do is I would just focus on the back half of the ski or just the tails of the ski, that's where you're going to have that most interference. You have most of your body weight on this part of the ski. There's not a lot up here. So this is the part of the ski that you want to focus on for that. A lot of times, even in warmer conditions, what you can do is you can put a slightly less aggressive structure across the entire ski, and then adding the second structure on the back half of the ski. So another tool that I like here is the 2mm linear 2mm. So it's a 2mm, just linear structure. So each one of these rails is 2 millimeters apart from each other. That one I will almost never put across an entire ski base. If you put that linear 2mm structure on the front of a ski base, especially in skating days, it's just not going to feel good. But putting on the back half of a ski, it's allowing, when you get to higher speeds, it's allowing that water to just fall into a groove and just get out the back of the ski quickly. And it's going to help speed you up. So a lot of times, coarse plus 2mm is a very, very popular combination of structure tools from Red Creek. So you do coarse, full length, and then 2mm on the back half of the ski. Awesome combination there. So if I were to add a fourth tool to those original 3 that I mentioned, it would be that 2 millimeter structure. And basically what I would do is I wouldn't just use a 2 mil, but if it's natural snow, high humidity, I put on that plus 15, minus 5 across the entire ski, and then I would do the 2 mil on the back half of the ski. If it's man-made snow, higher humidity, course across the entire ski, then back half, that minus 2, or just the 2 mil. So for this ski here, I'm just going to put on the minus 5, minus 20 off the back half of the ski, pushing that in there, noting that I still haven't brushed out the top coat from before. A lot of times I will press the structure in while I still have to do that final brushing. I don't know if this is science or whatever, it's just, I don't know, my personal way of thinking about it is I'm pressing that wax into the ski base. Maybe it works, I don't know. But then I will brush everything out with that nylon brush at the end. So I'll pass this along. You guys will notice the difference between, you guys won't be able to see this at all because it's very difficult to see in person. But if you look at the front half of the ski versus the back half of the ski, you can just see how very minute that changes in that structure. That's going to make a big difference for skiers this weekend.
So wait, Chris Hecker is saying in the last 2 years we haven't raced a race without some hand structure.
So there, that's my brother. World Cup. He's going to be in China. I don't know. He's leaving next week. So they've never not used structure, and they've had some pretty dang cold races. I don't know if you guys are watching this season, but there's been some cold races this season. So
Is it just cutting the structure in the wax, or is it actually in the ski base too?
it's in the ski base. So if I brush that out, it will be still there in the ski base. So yeah, that will still for sure be there. So and at the end of this, once we're finished here, I could probably go grab a crappy ski from over there. I've got a Swix 2 mil cutter. I can show you the difference between a 2 mil riller and a 2 mil cutter. I'm not going to cut anybody's ski in here. That's yeah, this is not going to happen. But cutters versus rillers are good for when there is like standing water on the trails, puddles, super high humidity. A cutter is going to do a much better job of getting rid of that water than a riller. So again, it's one of the World Cup races last year. I remember talking to my brother in World Championships. I believe that the girls' race, sprint qualifier, they were using the Red Creek 2 mil structure tool. They did not have a very good day. For the men's race, they decided to switch to the 2 mil cutter, and Ben Ogden, I think, qualified top 10. I think it was 8th or 9th he qualified, and no girl even came close to that. So I don't know if that was the structure or if it's just Ben Ogden's a really good skier or whatever, but we'll just call it causation equals correlation. So is there any questions we got here? We're kind of pretty much wrapping up here. Any more from online at all? No?
So why did you say it was geared if you took the 2 mil on a warm day, took the 2 mil and ran the whole ski?
So because it's a linear structure, especially in like skating, a linear structure in skating, because you're pushing off to the side, that linear structure is actually going to catch a little bit and cause like an edge. So like think about, I mean it's so difficult to explain without being able to feel it yourself. I've been on a ski that has with a structure, like a grind on it that felt like a vinyl record. So it's like super, super aggressive linear. And I try to push, and the ski just wants to keep on going straight.
So it must be a foot.
So it's kind of a tracking issue.
In the forefoot of the ski, the forepart of the ski. Okay.
Yeah, so it just wants to track straight, and you're trying to push off to the side.
I gotcha.
It doesn't feel great, and it also is a little bit slower too. So it's also glide speed.
I was going to ask, how do you clean those the rollers? Because they get filled with wax, I noticed in mine.
Yes, they do fill up with wax a little bit. So air compressor works well to clean this out. If you got like a toothbrush, A little bit of glide cleaner and toothbrush can work out, or wax remover. So just different ways to clean those out.
So are you offering wax service for the Sealy Hills Hop?
Yes, we are offering wax service for pretty much every single marathon race, or if you want to have wax service for a Wednesday night race at Elm Creek. All that wax service should be available on our website. If it's not on our website, call in, somebody can figure it out, and we'll get wax service.
Is that grip wax too?
Generally for classic races, we will only apply binder. Unless we are on site, which at Sealy, we might have Matt and Adam up there. They probably won't apply wax for you, but they will have a good recommendation and can help out if there's issues. So same thing at City of Lakes Blow Pit. I will be there at City of Lakes at the start line, probably handing out skis, but for sure there to help with any last minute questions on kick wax and Berkey as well.
And what's the turnaround time for the Sealy Hills Classic?
I have not looked at, is that next week?
The week after.
The week after, oh, that's 2 weeks out? Yeah, I haven't even thought about that. But generally, I try to finish up skis on Thursday. So for the Noki this weekend, I finish up all the glide waxing today. So that customers can come pick up the skis today or tomorrow, take them for the weekend, get them up there. So we don't do any in-person drop-offs for the smaller of the big races. We are in discussions of doing that for City of Lakes. We're not sure yet. But for sure the Berkey, if you drop off skis here or up in Cable or Hayward, we got several different places, I will personally hand deliver you your skis unless you're in wave 6, 7, or 8, because I will be off racing. So, well, ski, I'm not racing. So, cool.
Just one last one. What's the reason you're wearing gloves? Is this for dryness or like
Protection of
chemical?
this stuff. I mean, it's all non-fluorinated, but there's still things in these waxes that I'd rather not have in my system.
Plus
So
to keep the oil from your hands off the skis too. don't
that
you?
too, that too. But it's more protecting me than the ski. So yeah, even if you're using just a standard CH wax, there's still stuff in here I'd rather not have in my body. So trying to protect yourself is a good habit to get into. And especially when you're like brushing out any of the stuff, you see lots of stuff coming up. Trying to have a mask on of some sort. Doesn't need to be a full face respirator, but even just like a surgical mask is going to help prevent some of that particles from getting into your lungs. So.
Now you tell us.
Yeah. So, cool. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm an average racer, Elm Creek.
Yep.
I have classic skins. How often should I be using my liquid wax, applying it?
I mean, as often as you like. I mean, the more the better. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt to use it too often. But I would say probably every 10 to 20 kilometers you go out skiing, I would put on some liquid wax of some sort.
Okay.
And probably every 40, 50 K, maybe try to put a melt-on wax. Just kind of a rule of thumb. But that can change depending on how abrasive it is.
Right.
If it's super icy abrasive, you're just going to rip everything out in 5K, yeah, you probably want to put on a little bit more often. So.
And then multi-layers?
If you keep up on it, you probably only need to do one layer at a time. But if you're lazy and you just hold it off for a while, yeah, putting on 2 or 3 layers is going to be better. So
comments, great info, thank you. This was great, thanks.
awesome. All right, well, we got another.
I guess I thought of another question. So if you burn the bases, which I'm sure I've done on my skis, how does that affect the performance of the ski?
So basically, when you burn the bases of a ski, what you're doing is you're sealing that base material. So think of the base as like a sponge. It's just trying to accept wax. Well, if you burn that base, you're basically just like closing that sponge up, and it's just going to have wax sitting on the top of the ski versus actually penetrating into the base. And when the wax sits on top of the ski, you're still getting some of the benefits off. But because it's not inside the ski, it just comes off right away, and you're basically on just closed up base material. So having a healthy base material is going to help your race wax last longer. So if you think about, 50K, Berkey distance, yeah, having good healthy base material is going to be important. So, and that's something that I can generally fix is for the most part is getting out burns with a stone grind. I'm taking off base material 1 layer at a time,
looking in between each pass to make sure that one, I'm trying to get the ski flat. That's the number one reason why I'm doing stone grinds. But two, that again, there's just healthy base material there on top.
So that's another question, I guess. I noticed I have two pairs of skis. One, the fishers are very flat, and my
Yes.
monsters are not flat. They're more like rounded.
Uh-huh.
And is that like I just have to take a minute stone grind, or is it okay that it's rounded? Or
It's much better to have a flat ski. But again, I don't want to throw any. Monsoons are notoriously known for
They're like
getting
cocaine, yeah.
some beveled. So their core material is a different core material than a fisher has, and generally it rounds the edges just a little bit quicker than a fisher does. So I can still get those monsoons flat. It just takes me a little bit more work. But yes, getting a flat ski is a fast ski.
One last question here. Is the structure the last thing you do on the ski after all the waxing?
The last thing you do is brushing.
All right.
But in terms of applying any wax to the ski, yes, the structure would be the last thing that you're putting on. You still want to brush out after you get that structure in.
All right. So you steel, then structure, then nylon to finish.
Yep. Or you can do steel, nylon, structure, and then nylon again.
Got it.
So it doesn't hurt to do more nylon passes.
All right.
So,
For super cold temperatures then, say 5 degrees,
yep.
you would put down like a blue, Rex blue.
Yep.
And then you would put, what would you put over that? Would you put a stark green?
I'd probably put Stark Green or this Swiss Marathon. And again, when you get to those super cold conditions with like natural snow, I honestly probably stay away from liquids if it's like drier, lower humidity.
I found that the G41, the pink,
Yep.
just doesn't work as well when it's 5 degrees or.
Yeah, it has to be kind of still like older snow, but not very many waxes work well when it's 5 degrees. Everything's slow.
And then over that you put the kinetic in.
Yes. Yeah. So again, that G41 might feel slow. It's still probably faster than most other things as well. So.